I was walking back to my dorm in Lawrence Hall on a cold and windy night. Suddenly, my knees buckled. I found a wooden bench near the law school where I could sit down and calm myself. The word plagiarism scared the literal living shit out of me. Was this a racist accusation or the truth? On August 21, 2015, I left Beijing, where I lived for 18 years, and landed on the soil of Syracuse, New York, where I planned to study at Syracuse University. I expected a lot when I first got there. American dream, you know. But when I walked out of the first lecture I took in my CRS major. By the way, CRS stands for Communication and Rhetorical Studies, which was merely a boring version of philosophy to me. I still had saliva on my face from accidentally falling asleep. It was at that very moment I began to regret the $60 I paid for my textbook. Communication and Rhetorical Studies was not what I wanted. That weekend, I watched A One and a Two, a film made by Edward Young. At the end, my face was covered in tears.
这是什么？给我啊？哎，这是我哎，这我后脑勺哎，洋洋，你拍这个干嘛啊？
你自己看不到啊，我给你看啊。
原来是这样子啊！
原来是怎样啊？
I knew at that monumental moment, my fate was to become a storyteller. I wanted to explore what was on the back of people's heads. I wrote an email to the dean of the CRS school inquiring about how I could get transferred to the film school, called Newhouse School. Also, the place I dreamed of at that very beginning. The dean didn't make me wait long. I froze while reading this email at midnight. I didn't expect my email to get such a tough response. Academic probation for not taking the right class? Competitive, so I should not give it a shot? How hilarious. During the first week of class, the school had me meet with a mentor to talk about my future. She was an international student from Malaysia who transferred into the film school 2 years ago. She suggested that I stay in my major so that I could graduate early and not try to transfer to film major. Her explanation was that Asians, like us, are not talkative, so I might not be as favored as other students who wanted to transfer. I was so frustrated after that. I had higher expectations. She was an Asian who accomplished her goal after all. Days went by slowly. I felt every day was the same and boring as hell. I woke up, looked at the same window, read the same notes, walk the same road, saw the same decoration, and entered the same dulling classrooms. One day, I picked up 2 copies of an application at an info session for students who wanted to transfer. This was the very first time I stepped inside the film school building. I snuck out my phone and took a picture of the big wall with the huge name Newhouse on it. That was me entering my dream place for the first time. I put in my application and waited. Time began to move a little faster after that. One day in late October, I logged onto Blackboard to check my grades. I was shocked. There was an extremely low grade Arts Commons. The word plagiarism scared the literal living shit out of me. This was the first time I had done citations at the end of my paper, and I was sure I did them correctly. I walked straight to the dean's office to where a TA and the professor were sitting. They pulled up my paper on the computer screen, and the professor began talking about the cultural difference between China and the US, and how Chinese students, like me, easily plagiarize, like I did. I gnashed my teeth together, and my fingernails clinched into my palm. I attempted to stay calm as I reminded them there was still one page to go. Several seconds later, a proper MLA citation flashed on the computer screen. Steam was coming out of my ears as I exited Dean's office without even an apology. Adding points back to my grade was the final settlement for me. The case was closed, a settlement for a crime that I didn't commit. Days flew by, only 10 minutes before the schedule for next semester would be locked. However, as the dean mentioned in the first semester, transferring to the film school is pretty competitive. She was not lying. I need to get an extremely high GPA in my upcoming semester to get transferred. To be or not to be? This was the question, but not anymore. As the hands of clock grew closer to midnight, I made up my mind and chose the class I need to study in my upcoming semester and closed web browser. The upcoming semester, I studied like a stubborn robot, checking out a single study room, sitting there with my notebook, while watching the army of people march to Marshall Street during happy hour. At the end of that semester, I got 4 A's and an A-. Not perfect. Still, it might get me to where I wanted to be. There was an entire month of waiting. I woke up every morning, checked my mailbox, and repeat the simple action for over 100 times throughout the day. That day at 3 a.m., I received an email, admitting to the Newhouse. The film school. I was finally going to be studying in Newhouse, my dreamland. 3 semesters of insomnia nights finally paid off. I toasted with an entire can of root beer. Days flew by. I get up, walk through the snow to my dreamland, take a selfie in the restroom, set up cameras and lights, film something interesting, and watch my work proudly on a bigger screen. The first screening of a work of my team, Oops, was on December 8, 2018. I consider the speech given by Professor a payoff for what it took me to get there.
Will be your final exam.
对，你的处女作
We're
要
in the
上映
final
了，
exam right now. So put
有什么
your
感想吗？
papers, books, cell phones, all that stuff away. Because this is the final exam for TRF 205. It's a difficult thing to communicate to students in our classes of roughly 15 to 20 what they're doing these films for. Because it's just a theory when you're talking about it. But then, hopefully all of you who are now in this crowd who are those students, you feel the gravity.
Even though I'm an Asian who was supposed to be not competitive and culturally different, I'm glad that I managed to achieve my goal and become who I wanted to be. And that was the story wrote on the back of my head. After all that, I will not regret every second I laid on my small shabby bed 5 years ago, thinking about how much I was willing to pay to get in there. I'll be thankful to myself for never taking my eyes off the ball and not letting go the faint glimmer of chance that laid in front of me, which allows me to be telling this story in its best form right now.